Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Recruiters with No Limits. Always live and never scripted. And with my sidekick and co-host, John Ruffini. What is up, Johnny?
Good day, Richard.
Hey, and our guest today is Kelly from Parka. But before we even start, I got something here. Kelly said this today, and you know what? I got to go with this. And I've been waiting to say this, John, so long now. You ready for this? Guess what it is? Nerds!
That's great.
That is a shout out for Revenge of the Nerds. If you've never seen it, it's great.
That's
digital marketing
great.
there. So a shout out for that. And I'm so excited. We're going to have some nerd talk today on about digital marketing in the recruiting industry. But before we even jump into that, Kelly, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, you're all over everything on social media, ASA, everything. You're there. So
well, thank you guys for having me. This is so much fun. I was dancing along to the intro song, so hopefully we've got all kinds of people doing the same thing. So my background, just in a nutshell, I've got about 15 years of marketing experience. So Marcom, PR, branding, digital, really the works. But the last 11 years, I've focused specifically on the staffing industry. So thus the nerd comment comes out. I'm very passionate about the intersection of how marketing can help staffing. And so part of my career, I've spent in-house, leading marketing teams, building brands, all that fun, driving leads, all those fun pieces. And then the other half has been consulting staffing firm leaders, whether they're technology or marketing or C-suite leaders, on really what they're trying to accomplish. And like you mentioned, I'm a part of ASA, the Women in Leadership Council, and their marketing and PR committee, and just a great group of people. So that's me in a nutshell. I hail from Minneapolis. We're finally warm now, which is very exciting.
God bless you guys for living there. Any place where you have to have heaters in your garage so your engine block doesn't freeze is too cold for me.
No comment.
And everything's purple, right, John? Purple rain, Vikings. Come on.
It's true. And I will say, fun fact, before we dive into the nerdiness, I live in the town that Prince was in. So I'm minutes from Paisley Park, which is kind of fun. Yeah. So I know people who have interacted with him, obviously, in times past. I've never, but
when I've only been to Minneapolis like twice, and I was walking to see a baseball game, went to see a Twins game.
Yeah.
And we walked by First Avenue.
Yeah.
And I just kind of stopped and soaked in the moment, like, okay, this place is legendary.
Yeah. We've got a good music scene, good foodie scene, very active when it's not super cold. I mean, there are diehards out there, but it's a fun place to visit.
Very cool. So question, right off the bat, you mentioned that you provide guidance to C-suite folks on what they want to do. So my question is, how often do they really know what they want to do when it comes to digital marketing? Or is this something that you really got to hold their hand?
Yeah, no, that is a good question. I actually get more excited when someone doesn't know what they want to do in digital marketing yet. Usually a marketing leader will call me and say, we know we need XYZ, right? That's typical. They're in it day in, day out. But a C-suite individual who is not a CMO, right? So other C-suite individuals, they don't necessarily know what levers they need to pull. They just know what they're trying to accomplish in their business. And that's actually a much more fun place to have the conversation, because it's not about the website or the couple social posts every week. And those things are very important. But what's even more important is, what are you trying to accomplish from a business level? And how are you doing that today? What's working, what's not working, taking into account everything that has changed in the recruiting and staffing industry over the last even 5 years around the technology innovation, right? Like, what is your tech stack? What are you doing today? And then ultimately, just kind of boiling it down to, who is your audience? When do you need to meet them, and where? So it's more of a strategic conversation first before you get to the tactics. And that's a lot more fun.
Absolutely. Makes sense. You're seeing a much bigger picture, starting with, all right, where do you want to be? What's the end result? I love that. And then, all right, let's figure out the best way to get you there through different programs and different technologies, which makes total sense.
Right. Exactly. And I find that oftentimes, go ahead, Richard.
No, real quick. I love how you said the website. Everybody relies on their website for everything. It's like a hood ornament on your car. It has no engine. Seriously, it only does so much.
Right. Well, and there's a lot of different ways to approach your website, right? Like it certainly can be a lead generation machine, and that's very important. And if you're tying it to the right technologies, it can be a candidate generation machine as well. But when I started doing marketing for this space, of course, even 10 plus years ago, people all had a website, they all had blogs, they all had social, but it was more about showing up. Whereas now it's a given. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yes, you can show up. Yes, your website can look pretty, but is it creating the authority and adding the value to your audience that's going to create those
Exactly.
interesting conversations? And that's what I was going to mention is most of the conversations I have, yes, staffing firms say, I'm at this revenue, I want to hit this revenue. Yes, I want more candidates. It's a very candidate driven market. Sometimes they're still looking for the client side, but there's different phrases that are coming up now around candidate engagement and recruiter efficiency. And those are things where, again, I nerd out about this, where if you think about it in terms of a triangle, the top of the triangle, you've got businesses trying to accomplish their objectives. They've got these enterprise level challenges. And historically, it was either let's solve it through marketing or let's solve it through tech, right? So let's hire a company to make a pretty website, post some blogs, do some paid, or let's do bullhorn automation, formerly Herefish, or an entity like that, which is great. But it creates a scenario where you basically have a theme park that just has a bunch of rides, but you don't have the heart behind it. And so
Nobody on it.
What a great
yeah,
analogy.
so it's creating that experience. And to me, kind of meeting in the middle with, all right, what are you doing from marketing with the messaging with your audience, and tying in the amazing technologies that exist in our industry that we're a really big fan of at Parka, to make that experience.
Wow.
So true. And you know what? We have to listen to the job seekers too. I say that all the time. I think we all in the staffing industry say we want this fancy stuff. Job seekers want simple things. What's in it for them? That's the marketing part.
Yeah, right. And you think about ordering a pizza. Like, I go to Domino's, I jump on my app, I order my pizza, and whether it's actually real or not, I can see this tracker. Like, I know when it's in the oven, I know when they're checking it, I know when it's on the road. And obviously, getting a job as a candidate is far more important than me ordering a pizza on a Friday night, which nothing wrong with that, right? Like, pizza's the best. But I think we've all come to expect this immediate interaction and transparency from other brands. And so why would a candidate, let's say a travel nurse, for example, when they submit an application, they don't want to wait 2-3 days for a recruiter to get to it to determine if they might be a fit. So there's a lot of cool technologies out there. Staffing Engine is one of them, where they can start initially vetting that process, and the candidate can go deeper through the stages. The recruiter gets them more qualified, when they come across their desk. So yeah, we all have come to expect a different level of immediacy. and that's what's starting to become the new norm in staffing.
Well, and wouldn't it be great? Because, there's a big conversation now about, who's ghosting who. Recruiters are ghosting candidates. Candidates are ghosting recruiters. Candidates also should be able to online, like with your Domino's Pizza, be able to track where they are in the process. Someone's got it. Someone's reviewing it. Someone's going to reach out to you. Someone's not, whatever it might be. Oh, you've been submitted to the client, all that kind of stuff. That engagement, to your point, is really what's going to set one staffing firm apart from the other.
Right. And when you think about really just adoption in general, you've got early adopters, you've got that large section in the middle, you've got late adopters. I think we're beyond the early adopters already. There's a lot of really great companies that have implemented technology and have really thoughtfully thought about their messaging and how the candidate has their experience, how that reflects back to the client, how it creates better efficiencies for the recruiter. But there's still, I would say, the bulk of the industry that is thinking, oh, I need to get on board with this. And Richard, to your point, candidates are expecting it. So that's where it's going to start to be really interesting in the next year to year and a half, when a candidate doesn't have that experience, even if they're not a fit. If they don't find out, I would rather know, right? Like anybody, you'd probably rather know, all right, cool, I'm not a fit for that. Is there any feedback? Is there something that can help me in my job search, whatever that might be? I
could never understand when a company would say, yeah, we're going to pass on that candidate. And I'd say, okay, why? Oh, just not a fit. Okay, but why? Well, it just wasn't a fit. It's like, I need something to tell my candidate, because I can't just tell them, oh, well, they just said no because they said no. So that whole engagement, that feedback, I don't know why people are so hesitant, or maybe they're just not thorough enough, but we live and operate in a service business. So that level of service, to your point, Kelly, even if I don't get the job, even if you can't place me, if you give me a good experience, guess what? I'll come back and I'll refer my friends to you.
Right. And when you, of course, everybody here and everybody listening knows this. In the staffing industry and expanding into the search industry, there's a wide variety of experiences that are required based on the role. Like if you're placing someone in an hourly warehouse position or something that's very timely, quick turnaround versus something that takes a whole lot longer, like a senior IT leader role, I understand that the timing is different. The client expectations, the candidate expectations are different. All recruiters are already drinking from a fire hydrant. So it's not like a put a bow on it. It's everybody implement this tech, this messaging, bada bing, bada boom, it's done. Like, I get that, but some you can say, all right, it's credential based, therefore it's not a fit, or it's more of a soft skill based, therefore it's not a fit. I think there's ways to start integrating that into the communication and really just automating and creating efficiencies for the recruiters. I'll share a story. We've got a client that focuses on HR consulting, and they've got, how many consultants out in the field. And these are individuals that are mid to senior level. And it's very high touch, right? The contracts are 6 to 12 months minimum. And so I was having a conversation with this client's recruiter, one of the people on their team, and they said, before we implemented certain technologies, they're on Bullhorn and they use Bullhorn automation. So formerly Herefish, they use that combo in their tech stack. And she said, before that, I had X amount of consultants out on contract. And if I wanted to increase that and get paid more, I just had to physically send more texts, send more emails, do more lunches, do more calls, which takes time away from my family. I've got 2 kids in elementary. I would like to have more of that work-life harmony. And now that we have this technology,
you were on Drive last week, weren't you?
I was. Yeah.
I love that. I love that plug.
She's bringing the taglines.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Check out Thrive Virtual, the recording if you can. It was a great set of sessions, and they talked about work-life harmony. But it was really cool because she said, now with this tech implemented, I have twice the amount of consultants in the field, and I'm not spending more time away from my family. And so to me, obviously, like, she's placing more candidates. It's good for them. It's good for their clients. It's good for her life. It's good for the company for revenue. But something else that people don't always think about is it's really good for retention. If she gets recruited to another staffing firm and they do not have that tech stack, she's going to make less money. She's going to spend more time. Point. Yeah, it really benefits all around.
And you're automating things that can be automated, that don't take away from the true art of the relationship aspect of recruiting. It just makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So the big thing I got to ask is, so to get the candidate in the door, get them engaged with you with video. And I have a pet peeve with this, Kelly, you probably do too. I see so many videos with no music, nothing. It's just a video. It's blah. It's not. I always tell people in my speeches, Netflix. If you follow Netflix, everything else is history to get them in the door. I mean, we got to capture the audience that way. So how do you tell companies across the board to be more creative on that end?
Yeah. And Richard, you do such a fun job of this. Like, your videos are so action.
I got one we're going to show. I'm going to share you one in about a minute here. So look out. I prepare.
Awesome. Good. We just did a little teaser for that on accident. That's a great question too. And honestly, it all boils down to who their audience is and what they're trying to accomplish. So if somebody's looking to place, again, to use that same example, someone in an hourly capacity or a travel nurse or a CIO, there are different things that matter to each of those audience sets. And to some of them, having that lively, vibrant interaction is exactly what would capture their attention. Whereas someone else, what might capture their attention is more of a case study approach to, here's what we've helped our client accomplish. And if you want to work for a really cool company like this, these are the waves that you're going to make. So to me, it's actually more about defining who that audience is. We talk about buyer's journey a lot at Parka. It's not something we created. It exists in every industry. Staffing just hasn't been as formally focused on it. And it really revolves around, what is the candidate? What is the client? What is everyone's experience from awareness to consideration to decision to when they're actually in that process with you as a placed candidate or working with you as a client, and then advocacy. And they're all thinking, feeling, and doing different things at each of those stages. So your marketing really should help them to progress through each of those stages. And at some stages, the video that's really highly animated and excitable is what you need to get from awareness to consideration. So I hate to make it about like the macro, but there's a macro and a micro approach to it.
Right.
You got it. And you ready for this? Because I call it branding burst. I came up with this. This is a quick one. Check this out. I'm getting candidates over and over again with this for light industrial.
Dude, that's awesome.
Just like that, over and over again, people's like, you're different. You're not doing that now hiring stuff. Rev it up. I mean, make it exciting. And I think, Kelly, to the point, even in my office, we have a Miss Pac-Man machine now. So when you come in, you play Miss Pac-Man with me. If you beat me, you get $10 gift card. Swear to God.
That is awesome. See that's so keyed in on what is relevant to your candidate network. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's getting them excited. No one else is doing that. Like, just the energy that you have, I don't know that anyone could possibly match, because you're so natively there. It's awesome.
Yeah, Johnny knows me real well.
Well, and again, we talk about, in the world of uber authenticity. I love that, because you own everything, Richard, and you're always trying to think of something different, something that will grab someone's attention, and it works. I mean, the stuff you put out there is so unique and original. It can't help but draw you yourself to their attention and differentiate yourself from everybody else. Because for some reason, and Kelly, I'm sure you've seen this, our industry just never wants to change. It's always like, oh no, it's always been this way. It works. We're good. The ones that adapt, I'm not saying get rid of the fundamentals, but the way you approach the business and how you integrate technology to help your business. If you're not doing that, eventually you're going to be left behind.
It's true. And I think it's because of the beauty, and we'll call it a subtle flaw of the industry, of where it came from. But I mean, very heavy emphasis on the beauty, where it's always been a handshake type of industry. Like, you company need people to make your business run. Let's have that conversation. Let's sit down and have that dialogue. Okay, I'm going to go out and find these people. I'm asking them to change their career. I'm asking them to trust me. There's a lot of relationship emphasis. And as the industry has evolved, there's such a need around, like light industrial and healthcare and the whole professional side. And whether you're talking about staffing and consulting versus executive search versus retained, I mean, there's a wide spectrum. And I remember having a conversation at this point 2 years ago plus with Maurice Fuller, who I'm sure everybody here's familiar with, right? Staffing tech, and he's done some really awesome things. And we were talking about AI and just overall automating processes. And I asked him on a fireside chat a long time ago, do you think recruiters should be nervous about this? And he said, no, because no recruiter gets into the business wanting to send a million messages. No recruiter gets into the business wanting to update manual fields constantly. Like, they get into the business because they want to help people, because they love hearing stories and making connections. And so technology should not be taking away the things that make our industry, and like that heart and soul. They should just be making it more efficient. Like the recruiter example that I gave a minute ago, like, she's thrilled that she can double herself essentially, but still keep that authenticity.
I love that.
I love it. I got to ask you something real quick, Kelly. Now, Facebook, what do you think on that? Because my Facebook, if anybody sees my personal one, it's staffing. That's my lifestyle. So many people don't want to tap into that, but all my candidates and my clients, they're part of my personal Facebook, and that's how I grow.
Very cool. I think for light industrial, it makes a ton of sense. I think for travel nursing, there's a big focus there with different groups. I think it all comes down to who your audience is. But I would say, for any staffing firm leader, marketer, technologist that's in your day-to-day, right? You're pushing the business, or you're implementing marketing strategies, or you're onboarding new tech, all the things. It's nice to sometimes just take a step back and say, if I actually talk to 5 of our best types of candidates, where do they live? Where do they spend their time? What do they care about? And does what we're doing actually filter through that lens, or are we just kind of busy doing busy? I would say 80% of what staffing firms are doing are fantastic. It's just that extra 20% can make a massive impact on your ROI. And Richard, you've done a good job with that. You've said, I know who I'm trying to place. I know the clients I'm trying to support, and my candidates live on Facebook. So I'm going to live on Facebook and I'm going to make a personal relationship with them. So for you, that channel and that strategy is perfect. For someone who is placing in a different capacity, Facebook may not be where their audience lives, but LinkedIn certainly probably is. So I think there's just different ways to approach it, but all through the lens of what matters to them.
Understanding your audience and getting to know them as individuals and professionals, not just as transactions.
Right. And there's ways to formalize this, right? I mean, I've never talked to a recruiter or a staffing firm leader who said, I don't know who my candidates are. Like, yes, everybody knows who they're trying to place, but to put it into a framework that, again, like, what is their buyer's journey and what are they generally thinking, feeling, and doing at each stage? And then you can drill it down to, where do I need to show up for different channels? What kind of messaging, like literally down to, if I'm going to create a blog, if I'm going to create a webinar, if I'm going to host an event, what topics matter to them? And that starts to really inform your marketing strategy, because otherwise, going back even a few years into our industry, people just started creating blogs for the sake of creating blogs because they heard it was good for SEO, and it is, but they're like, cool, we're making them, but it just started to get noisy. So it's better to like get in the head of your audience and map that out so that you know that what you're creating is relevant.
Well, and to your point earlier, it's all about adding value. So is what you're producing, you can put it out there once or twice and that's great. People might see it, but you've got to give them a reason to want to come back. And that's the value. Like, okay, I'm going to go to this blog every week because they've always got good nuggets. I'll always learn. Whereas if you're just putting stuff out there that you think is cool, but you don't know if it's in touch with your audience, all right, they might come once or twice, but then they drop off. And it's all about that retention, keeping them coming back.
Right. And I think our industry had gotten so used to just kind of the vanilla cookie cutter approach to content, because we went from not having any of it to all of a sudden, oh shoot, everybody's adopting it. We need to produce 2 blogs a month, no matter what, or 4 blogs a month. And again, that's not a bad tactic, but if it's not done strategically, it's not helping, and you're spending money on it. And so, it's just thinking about not pushing content out for the sake of pushing content out, but like what actually matters. Even if it's a quality over quantity approach, I'd prefer to see that every single time. And you can't possibly appeal to every audience. Like Richard, you appeal to your distinct audience, and that is what matters. And that's what's working for them and for you. But if you were trying to be all things to all people and you were on every channel with every message, producing 4 times the amount of content, it might just be noise to them. Like you've honed in on what matters to them and what's relevant.
And I think something else, and you probably agree on this, like I teach the recruiters I help out, we have to have a tagline. I'll be honest with you, Kelly. I've been in business for 11 years. Richard Rosner for 9 years, nobody cared about. Then you have like the staffing shark or the redhead recruiter. I have, what do you think of that? You like people to take a tagline and maybe people remember that and they can, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that actually touches just on personal branding and how important that is in our industry. I think it's important to be known for something. Literally, my husband last night, who's an entrepreneur, has multiple companies, said, do you think I should be having a personal brand? And we mapped out, like sitting on the couch last night at like 9 o'clock, super high level, like, what do you want to be known for? Who are the people you want to get in front of and you want to impress? What are the topics that matter to them? And that's ultimately the 3 questions I would say everybody should go through. What do you want to be known for? Who do you want to impress? And what can you share that will add value to them? So, Richard, I had known you through LinkedIn, but I saw you in person because Adrian, and I'm blanking on his last name right now. We were at Staffing World, and you two were giving each other a hug. Am I blanking on his name?
Dominguez?
Yes. And you guys asked me to take a picture for you. And he's like,
we were doing the baby shark.
Yeah. And he was like, oh my gosh, staffing shark. And so there's something to that. That's actually really fun and it helps you to stand out. But I would say it dials back to, what do you want to be known for? And that might be a tagline listed on your LinkedIn profile, but more commonly it comes through in the types of messaging you consistently preach. Like Lauren Jones, I name drop her all the time because she's a friend of mine and she's doing such cool things in our industry. People know her as someone leading the change for digital transformation and evangelizing. When a staffing firm implements tech, they should be talking about it. just like if you were to go get an MBA, you wouldn't like tuck it aside and never tell anyone. Like, it's an investment you've made. It's going to make you better at what you do. It ends up everywhere. You start talking about it everywhere. And so that's a long-winded answer to say, yeah, I think you should have something that you're known for that you can add value and share that in different ways.
Well, we know you, Kelly, for being kind and loving everything on LinkedIn. I mean, you praise everybody. Am I right, John?
She's out there. She's out there active, and
Yeah.
definitely, you definitely know, and you stick. You know your area of expertise, and the stuff you put out there. Again, when you look at people's content, you want to see, is there a level of consistency? Are they, to your point, Kelly, are they all over the map, or is everything they put out there kind of in? And it's okay to have. You've got people that, well, I can add value in these 3 areas. Okay, well, then you can promote those 3 areas. You don't have to only have one,
Right.
but you want to be somewhat consistent and not a spread so thin person that you lose the credibility.
Right. And it all comes down to, who are you trying to add value to? And that might look different for me than Richard, than John, than anybody listening. A couple, I'll name drop a few other people. There's a couple recruiters in Minneapolis that are with a company called Celerity. Their names are Katie Larson and Tracy Kelly. So if you guys are listening, TK and Katie, you guys are great. Few recruiters do a good job of honing in their personal brand. You often see companies that are providing services to the staffing industry do a good job because that's how they get in front of their audience. But recruiters could certainly do this too. And same with staffing firm leaders, where it's like, all right, here are the candidates I'm supporting. Here are the clients I'm supporting. So I'm going to talk about what's relevant to them. And they place a lot of marketing and creative talent. So they both do a good job of honing in on, here are things that are happening personally in my life that relate back to motivation and encouragement and roles that we're hiring for. And so that would be like what my focus is around. What can I talk about that adds value around technology innovations, digital marketing, digital transformation, and just encouraging people, because those are the things that I like to follow on LinkedIn. And so I'd like to be known as a hub for providing things like that, because hopefully it's adding value.
And through that, you're not, you're contributing, you're giving to your community. I always tell people the business will come to you if you're doing that, rather than, we've all seen those people on social, all they do, Richard and I were just talking this before, they're just selling.
Oh,
Right.
I need, I want, I have. And it's like, it gets old really fast. Whereas the people that are engaged in the platform, somehow their businesses tend to grow. I don't think that's a secret as to why that happens.
No. And even relating it tangibly back to Parka, when Parka first launched, we focused on LinkedIn ads, because naturally the people that we can support, staffing firm leaders, spend time on LinkedIn. And over time, we've fully switched away from lead generation ads on LinkedIn, because we get inbound interest just by showing up and being present and talking about the future of where the industry is going. And it's been consistently 3 to 5 conversations every single week that hit my LinkedIn of people saying, I would like to learn more about Parka. And not everybody is quite the right pairing for how we can support them. But I will say, and I feel weird saying this because it sounds self-promoting, and it's not my intention. I'm like getting warm talking about it. But I've set up partnerships with other digital marketing agencies that specialize in staffing for the times that a staffing firm comes to me and it's not quite the right fit, that I can still add value to them. And it helps them, it helps the other digital marketing firms. I think that's what it's about, is creating an ecosystem that can help people, because you can't, like Richard, John, myself, anybody listening, you can't possibly help with your services every single person that reaches out to you, because if you're doing a good job building your business, you've gotten niche and you're honing in on your sweet spot and what you're good at. But if you can develop kind of like a referral network around you, it helps add that value.
Yeah, because then people know they can come to you, and if you aren't the answer, you're networked enough that you can point them and connect them to the right person. And that's adding so much more value beyond the initial. And again, I'm a believer that stuff like that, we do a lot of things that we don't get paid for. And we do it willingly, because what you put out in the world does come back to you at some point. So,
no, it does. And people who have developed brands and networks, I would say, without having hard and fast data behind it, I would say 9 times out of 10, if you have an ask of someone else, they're going to be like, let me point you in the right direction, because you've helped me in this area. I mean, I'm not saying you get free services that other people have to pay for, but just like, getting insight and,
Absolutely.
having time with
Heck
someone to
yeah.
like say, I'm experiencing this challenge. Do you have any ideas? Can you point me in the right direction? It is a give and take relationship, not just
100%.
take.
Giving
Yeah.
equals growth, right, John? I say that all the time. You give,
So
you're going to
true.
grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you give, the more you get.
Man,
Yeah,
incredible
yeah, and
job.
it's fun because over time you start, maybe not everybody here, but you may start with the mindset of, okay, I hear what they're saying. I'm going to start being active on LinkedIn. Hopefully it comes back to me. But even if it starts that way in your mind, it's going to change to, wow, it's really fun. It's really fun to help someone, even if they can't help me
It
back.
is.
Like
Totally.
you can't, like I said, you can't help everybody. Like there are only so many hours in a day, but what you can do to point them in the right direction, like it's really rewarding. And it,
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like it feeds
Absolutely.
your soul. It's like,
Oh,
this is
yeah.
cool. Like other people have helped me when it hasn't benefited their company, and I'd be happy to do the same. And then when that right audience that is kind of in that sweet spot approaches you, you're just that much more credible to them because they're like,
exactly.
perfect. This is a great fit. What you're doing and what we need aligns. Awesome. Let's have that deeper conversation.
Agreed.
So I got to ask you guys, when do you say no? Because I say yes to everybody. Brainstorming with the shark, 8:00 at night. I'm talking to somebody. I can't say no to anybody. Is that crazy? But it's our lifestyle. Staffing is a lifestyle, really.
It is a lifestyle. And if you're going into the world of staffing and recruiting, you've got to be committed to long-term relationships, and you've got to be committed to being accessible. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm still navigating that. I don't
It's
know that
hard
I'm
because
navigating it well, but
yeah, there's got to be a balance, right?
there is. And I've seen a few people do a really nice tee up where they've said, thanks for reaching out to me about that. I actually created a webinar answering all those questions because I get that question so often. Would you mind checking that out first? Just like pointing them to an additional resource. Because you think about influencers on LinkedIn that have like over 100,000 followers. I can't imagine the volume of emails they get of people asking. Like even if they didn't have a full-time job, there wouldn't be time for them to get back to it. If I were to ratio out how many messages I get versus how many messages they must get. So you have to get to a point where you're still saying, I would love to help you, but maybe it's a voice memo and reply for 30 seconds and pointing them in a few directions rather than an hour and a half on the phone dissecting. I think you just kind of have to pick and choose, right? I mean, either way, I would not reply to someone, but yeah.
Yeah, there are recruiters that are one extreme where you can call them 1:00 in the morning if you need them.
Yeah.
And there are other recruiters that say, you know what, this is my time, and that's okay too. It's to your point, as long as you set the expectations with your candidates as far as how you work, and obviously there's going to be exceptions based on critical situations, but as long as you lay the groundwork and everybody understands it, then I think those lines of demarcation, however it works best for the recruiter and the candidate, are perfectly fine. There's no one way to do it.
Right. And it's also nice to find out what they're trying to accomplish.
Totally.
Right. If they happen to see something that you posted that was cool and they shot you off a message and they're not even going to think about it in 2 days, that's one thing. Versus if they're like, man, I'm really trying to solve this in my head, and Richard seems like the guy to talk to about it. Like you can often hear that in their tone of their message of like, is this really actually going to help them, or was it just like a flyby, see their pants, just an idea? Again, either way, replying back is like the respectful thing to do and pointing them in the right direction. But that's how I've kind of decided, when can I get an extra set of time on my calendar versus when is it I'm pointing someone in a direction that can support them elsewhere.
That's awesome.
You know what's funny is, as a recruiter, and Johnny knows this, I'm at the Cabana bar sitting drinking a beer and I'm recruiting right beside me. They're like, hey, I need a job. It's like, it's nonstop. So it's like, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Always.
Oh, man. Well, hey, John, before we wrap things up, man, any final thoughts, brother? Oh, man.
Holy cow. There's a ton of final thoughts. Thank you so much, Kelly. We could keep talking for a long time, and clearly you're passionate about it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You said a few things that I'm going to take away and remember. You talked about, when you're having a digital marketing strategy, it's not a one size fits all. So know where you want to end up and know your audience, and ideally get with someone who can help you down that journey and kind of point you in the right direction. And then I love that you said that technology should not replace the recruiters. Technology should complement the recruiter. Recruiters don't get into this business. I love what you said. Something like, recruiters don't get into this business to send messages and reply. They get into this business to have the conversations and build relationships. And that shouldn't stop, but technology should make that easier. And I love that.
Yeah, it just helps so much to have things that make us more efficient. You know, if you're trying to get from point A to point B and you used to have to do it with a horse and now you can do it with a car, great. You're still just trying to get from point A to point B.
I never thought, and it's so obvious once you said it, I'm like, of course, where a staffing firm's technology could be a retention vehicle. Because if you enable your recruiters and give them the tools that they won't get somewhere else, you make their jobs easier, you make it easier for them to earn a living. Why would they leave? So that's something staffing firms out there need to consider. If you're not investing in your tech stack and you're not trying to figure out what can I do to make my recruiters more efficient and more productive in the same light, you might be losing a competitive edge there. So I love that.
Right. And if you start thinking about what dollars are associated with losing some of your best recruiters, it all of a sudden creates a whole budget that you didn't know you had for technology. Yeah. And it is that differentiator. And I would say, treat it like your MBA. Like, do not go through a massive bullhorn integration or whatever integration, implementation, and just know that you did it internally and, oh, we got through it. Everything's like up and running. Like, broadcast what tools you're using that will make your clients' lives, your candidates' lives, your recruiters' lives easier and better. Because there's a reason you implemented it in the first place.
Right. So, you hope.
Right. You hope. And that's what Lauren does a really good job of, is sharing, like, you then need to evangelize about that. And that's where our team gets excited to say, okay, you've got this tech, or you're evaluating this tech. How does it communicate? How do you go from a theme park to an experience that everybody goes back year after year and talks about? You've got the infrastructure, but is the messaging right? Is the audience focus right? Right. Like, how do you make it run even better?
Well said. And all I can say is digital marketing experience. If you need any help out there, I'm going to give you a plug now, Kelly. Call Parka. I mean, she'll put a smile on your face. And she got full of energy and knowledge. And if she doesn't know the answer, I'm sure somebody does.
I took a boatload of notes. I hope whoever was listening did also. I've got
big time. Wait, Kelly, thank you again for coming on the show. I can't wait to have you on another show. See you at Staffing World. Take another Baby Shark pick and have some fun. But hey, everybody, thank you for joining us. Have a safe week, and we'll see you soon. Take care.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.